an app that you have, or how is it?
Yes.
How are you
Exactly.
raising the money from the friends, and how does that work?
Exactly. So essentially, we wanted to create a way for people to not borrow from friends and family.
Right.
Because of how stressful and strenuous that is on personal relationships. So we said that there should be an open marketplace created to where anyone can lend or borrow amongst anyone in the country. So essentially, what I realized, my background again is in financial planning, and what I realized is that my average client was making between $250,000 and $500,000 a year, and that no one was calling the person who made $80,000 or $90,000 a year. Now that person may live in Kansas City where the cost of living is extremely low, and that person has a lot of discretionary cash. Those people are often looking for places to invest their capital to earn returns, but they don't know how. So what happens is those assets just lie dormant, and they don't make any returns on that capital. So what we said is, could we find a way to unlock those assets and that capital and pair it with these individuals who need access to small dollar capital, where this person could actually earn industry leading returns on the linked capital. On the flip side, this person could solve their short-term cash needs more affordably than ever. So we are delivered in a mobile application where borrowers actually set their own terms. Because again, predatory demographic or predatory industry that we wanted to disrupt. So we allow borrowers to create their own terms. So imagine a single mother who's living in Oakland who may need $100 to pay her utility bill. She can actually come into this platform and post how much money she needs. So she needs $100. She can repay on the 15th of the month because that's her payday. She needs the money for her utility bill, and as an appreciation to whoever helps her, she will throw in, let's say, a 5% or $5 tip. And then for the Solo platform, we earn a donation. So let's say that she does a $3 donation to Solo, or 3%. So essentially, at the onset of the transaction, a lender says, I'm going to lend them the $100. There's a debit from the lender's bank account and credit directly to the borrower's account. It happens real time, so that borrower now has $100 of real time capital to use. No matter if it's Sunday, Saturday, it's immediate.
And the lender has to agree that the terms that the borrower has is...
Exactly. So it's a marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So if the lender doesn't like your terms, they just don't fund your loan. They go to a different loan in the marketplace that are more favorable. Maybe the terms are more favorable for that individual.
Now,
so,
I didn't mean to cut you off, but what is the difference between that and a crowdsourcing like GoFundMe or something like that?
So the difference is, typically with a platform like that, it takes a lot longer to get your money. Our average loan is funded within 2 hours because only one person is lending you the money. When you're crowdfunding, you need a bunch of individuals to commit to your specific transaction, and it takes a lot longer. So on those platforms, it may take you days for your loan to get funded. We're talking about hours, and because we do transfer the funds in real time, you actually are able to go solve your cash need same day.
And I think GoFundMe I don't think those are loans either.
They're also not loans.
They're not loans.
So those are essentially gifts. And early on, that's a good point. Early on, people would say, Travis, I don't think that investors would say, Travis, I don't think people are going to lend strangers money. And I said, well, they're giving money away every day on GoFundMe, giving it away.
Well, but people said the same thing about Uber. Nobody's going to jump in a stranger's car.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah. Exactly. But talk about disruption and the fact that we haven't really put technology behind our ideas. But I can go to the Pathmark on 125th Street in New York. Actually, they just closed, but I could go there, or any other grocery store in New York City, and I walk outside and there's some random person with a Lincoln Town car who's going to say, you need a taxi? I'll give you a ride. That was Uber before Uber. Uber put technology behind that, but these gypsy cabs have been around forever. And it's unfortunate that we had these ideas, but we never capitalized on the real opportunity.
Talk about how that works, because I think as the mind of an entrepreneur versus an employee, two questions. One, what's your mindset every day in order to survive as an entrepreneur that's different from just being a worker? That's one. And then how do you go about moving forward and just executing on an idea? People have ideas all the time, but there's probably something that's stopping them. What advice can you give them? So it's a two-part question.
Yeah, so on the first part of that, I think all of this actually collectively is the same. I think people are very adverse to taking risks. And because we have been restricted of resources for so long that a lot of our parents will tell us, go get that job that's going to pay you X amount of money and be safe, right?
Go get your education.
Go to school, go work for the government, go get that job at Procter & Gamble or GE, and you're just gonna be safe, and just pray to God every night and thank him the fact that you have that job and just hold on to it for as long as you can.
Because from their view, that was seen as progress, which makes sense.
Right.
If that's where if you come from that era.
Exactly.
That
My
makes
father
sense.
worked at General Motors for 37 years.
Yeah.
And, it worked out for our family. It was very helpful. But, the mind of an entrepreneur is there's so much risk, and there's also, you have to be a lot more selfless, right? Because, when payroll is due and you don't have the money, right?
Hello.
Right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Who doesn't
yeah.
get paid first, right?
Right.
It's you.
Exactly. So, a lot of people aren't willing to, take on that type of sacrifice.
No, and I always say this too. I mean, I think it's important to cultivate entrepreneurship in a younger generation and in people for, like, if they can monetize their passion, that's wonderful. But everybody isn't made for entrepreneurship, and it's okay.
No,
it's like you
And
you don't want to
most
take
aren't
right.
actually.
It's
Which is
a
okay
lot,
too.
right? No,
Right.
it's just as fulfilling as it is, stressful, and it's everything has stress. But if you can't deal with the stress that comes
It's a
with
different
owning
kind
your
of
own
stress.
business
Yeah.
and being responsible
Yes.
for livelihoods and people's livelihoods and all the other responsibilities, then it's fine. Go work somewhere where you feel, but don't
Right.
go with the misconception that you have the
But everybody
security
can-
that
that's
you
true.
this misconception of that being a secure
But everybody
place.
can be an owner. Everybody can't be an entrepreneur, but everyone can be an owner. So, for example,
They could.
you can have an opportunity to invest as a lender. You can have an opportunity to
Right.
make, because that has to be the mindset, changing the mindset about wealth. Like, you are not wealthy because you have a job that pays you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You are not.
Right,
You are
right.
only wealthy if you have assets.
You have
Exactly.
Period.
Even as an employee, you have ownership of your talents and
Right.
skills
Exactly.
for that company.
Exactly.
And we've been too long like, well, I work for the company, so I get to give these ideas away. No, you can advance in that company by
Yep.
owning. This is what I'm bringing to the table, and this is how valuable I am to
Yep.
you.
Or you
One
can do
que-
both. You can own.
Yeah.
You can have a business while you're working
Exactly.
for another entity.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what you may have done while you were first starting off.
I wish, right?
Oh, you just
jumped
jumped
off.
all in
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I'm with you with that.
I hedged it.
The real story is, I thought I didn't really know how this world worked. I was in traditional finance, and I didn't really know what venture capital really was and how that system really worked. And at the end of the day, I thought that we had this really strong idea,
Right.
and I would keep my full-time job where I was making a very comfortable living,
Right.
and I would go pitch up investors, and they would say this is great, and they would just give me money, and then I would leave.
It didn't work that way.
Um,
That would be perfect. That sounds like a perfect plan.
Only in the movie.
not
Roll
at
the-
all,
roll the
right?
credits.
So,
Let me guess. It was
Yeah.
it was a bunch of no's before that, right?
it was a bunch of no's, and the no's were very confusing to me, because they would tell me they really liked the idea and that they would lean in and do it, but then they would ask me one question, and the question would be, are you full-time on this? And when I would say no, they would politely say, let me know when you're serious. And it took me about a year and a half to really realize that unless I do this full-time and I jump in and I give this everything that I have, it's not going to work out. And it took me a year and a half, and I raised $0. And then after committing to going full-time, I raised $250,000 within like 2 weeks.
Wow.
So,
Just from that.
and then
People
from
won't
there,
invest
it's
in
been,
you until
Exactly.
they see that you're invested.
Exactly,
in your
and I
idea.
understand it, because when I wasn't working full time, I would be excited about things that don't matter. Oh, I have a redesign of a pitch deck,
Right.
and that was like a win for the week. And it's
Right.
like that's not, you didn't do anything, right? You're not making any real progress. And until my back was against the wall, and I realized that if I don't figure this out, I don't eat. It became a different level of passion, not even passion, but just work ethic.
Let me ask you a question, the technical question, because like you said, a lot of entrepreneurs, some of us at this table have some great ideas, but how did you connect with the tech side, the app side, and all of that?
Yeah, so I'm not technical by trade at all, and what I realized is that I could explain what I wanted to happen very well, and I think that when you get into technology and you don't come from a technical background, you have to be able to explain very clearly what you want. Developers speak in very direct and black and white language. You can tell someone to make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you put the peanut butter, and you put the jelly, you put the peanut butter on the bread, and you put the jelly in the bread. But someone could literally give you 2 slices of bread and put a jar of peanut butter on one and a jar of jelly on the other, and say, well, I gave you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Right.
Yep.
And that's how developers think. They're like,
Right.
I gave you this, right? And when you get the actual product,
yep.
it's not at all what you want, but they're like, but I gave you what you asked for.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
exactly. A B.
Exactly. So I had to learn how to talk and speak to developers.
okay.
Yep.
And I think that it's a very difficult thing to do. But mentors and other people who have been doing this for a long time have really helped me with
Well, your co-founder said something on one of our prior shows that he probably told you this. The most important thing, Rodney Williams of Listener and of Solo Fund said the most important thing entrepreneurs have is learning how to learn. So that's what you were doing.
Exactly.
That's your most important skill. And if you can do that and solve problems, you can be an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Well, how does the lender find you, and how does the borrower find you?
So primarily our acquisition strategy has been social media, and Facebook and Instagram have been two of our biggest acquisition channels, and also the most cost effective. So social media is very big for
So
us.
what are you on social media?
So we are at Solo Funds, so SoloFunds, Solo Funds on Instagram, Twitter.
Thought it was gonna be a Z in there
as
somewhere.
well as as well as Facebook. We're on Facebook as well.
And so we just, like someone looking to find
Yeah.
money will go to you, and then if I'm interested in lending money, I'll just go to that and
Yes,
you'll
so
link me up.
download the app. We're on iOS currently, so if you go to the App Store and type in Solo Funds, we'll pop up. But essentially, if you're a lender, you come into the platform and you're able to lend with really no barrier to entry. The smallest loan on the platform is
That's
$50. So essentially, that's your barrier to entry is having $50 of discretionary cash to lend.
What is there a ceiling on?
There's a ceiling on loans currently, which is $500.
Okay.
Eventually, we will go up to $1,000 for these loans, but currently we're capped at $500.
And how do you protect the lender in terms of securing their funds and all that? Is there a way that you do that?
Yeah, so currently it is a one-to-one transaction, and on the agreed upon repayment date, there's an automatic debit from the borrower's account. And typically when you lend money to friends and family, they have that convenient amnesia when it's time to pay.
Right.
Like what? When I owe you? I owe you? No, really?
Exactly. There's no terms around any of that. There's no structure around those loans amongst people that you know. So, basically, when they select those repayment dates.
So next time you want to make your cousin a loan, go through Solo Funds. That's what
Right,
you're saying.
that's
Go
a
ahead.
good idea, right.
Exactly.
But how I'm gonna
But how
back
the
it up a little
borrower,
bit.
though?
Yeah.
How do we do it? Because we have folks that be like, yeah, I got it in this account, and then they close that account. So in that case, how does the lender get their money?
Yeah, so we're essentially looking at seasoned accounts. Essentially, what we've created is a one-time per transaction credit score.
Okay.
We believe that the underbanked demographic and the millennial demographic specifically, and also future generations to come, are being mispriced from a credit standpoint, and it's primarily because traditional institutions are looking at historical data of have you ever bought a house? Have you ever bought a car? Do you use credit cards, right? And if you don't fit that demographic, or if you don't fit those metrics and qualifications, then typically you're unable to borrow. And when you live in large metropolitan areas, especially as expensive as the Bay Area is, New York City, Los Angeles, people usually don't own their own home. They don't, in New York, you definitely don't need a vehicle. And some people are not, people aren't using credit cards the way that prior generations have. So with that said, it used to be normal to be 30 years old and, be married, have a home, 2 cars, and 1.5 kids. That's no longer the case. So, if an individual grew up in New York City and now lives in Kansas City, they may come there and not have any of those traditional metrics that you would be looking for. Never bought a house, never bought a car, didn't use credit cards. We're looking at their borrowing activity within our platform to look at their ability to repay those small dollar short-term loans with the the angle of providing a path to upward financial mobility to where they can now go get a traditional loan from a traditional institution and be able to say that, Travis is more credit worthy than you believe because he's been taking loans on this platform, paying them back on time for the last year. Give him his first credit card with, a small dollar credit limit, or give him a more favorable interest rate on a car loan because he's more credit worthy than you actually think. So, that's essentially how we look at the opportunity here for Solo.
We go, we stay.